In this video, we're going to go through naming and formula writing for covalent compounds. So covalent compounds follow a different naming scheme than ionic compounds do. And we use prefixes to designate the number of atoms. So if I have one of something, it would be mono. If I have two, it would be di. So an example, if you look down at the bottom here, is S3Cl5. There are 3 sulfurs and 5 chlorines. So because there are 3 sulfurs, I use the prefix tri, so trisulfur. And because there are 5 chlorines, I use the prefix penta, penta, chlorine. But we're going to change the ending to chloride, just like we change the ending of our anion and ionic compounds. Okay, so I leave the first term alone. I don't change sulfur to sulfide, just like I don't change the cation in an ionic compound. So trisulfur pentachloride. Now, if we have only one of something, we never use the prefix mono on the first term. So in the example ClF, where I have chlorine and fluorine, one of each, it would be chlorine monofluorine. Okay, so I don't change the ending to the second word, or sorry, I don't change the ending of the first word because there's only one of them and it's the first word. So only the beginning of the second word gets changed when there are one of them. And that was a little confusing. Okay, let's take a look at some weird cases here. So in the first example, I have chlorine, and there are 2 of them. So I would add the prefix di. Oxygen, there is only 1 of them, so I would add the prefix mono. But wait a second, oxygen starts with the letter O. Like, how would you even pronounce that? Monoxide? Monoxide? That just doesn't look right. So what we do instead is we drop that double O. We get rid of that extra O, and it becomes dichloride monoxide. All right. Ooh. Okay, in our second example, we have something similar. We have 2 nitrogens, which becomes dinitrogen, and we have 4 oxygens, which becomes tetra. Now again, we have something that's kind of weird here. We have an A and an O. We have 2 vowels next to each other. Tetraoxide. Tetraoxide. We don't do that. So we get rid of that A, and it just becomes tetroxide. It flows a little bit better. Tetraoxide. Just, I don't know, it's like an abrupt stop in the middle. If we get rid of that A, tetroxide, it flows a lot better. All right, let's move on to an example here. So we have nitrogen and we have iodine. There is only 1 nitrogen, but remember, we don't put mono on the end, or we don't start our first word with mono. So this would just be nitrogen. And then we have 3. The prefix for 3 is tri, and then iodine becomes iodide. Okay, now you're looking at this and you're like, all right, well, hold on a second. We got 2 I's next to each other like that. That can't be okay. It's okay. Triiodide, when we have 2 I's next to each other like that, that is okay. It's only when we have the double O or the A and an O next to each other. All right, we have P4O10. The prefix for 4, if we go back up and look at our list, is tetra, and the prefix for 10 is deca. So it would be tetra phosphorus and then deca oxide. Okay, now here we have the A and the O next to each other. So we are going to drop the A and keep the O. So it would just be decoxide. Tetraphosphorus decoxide. Okay, here's another example. Carbon, and we have oxygen. Carbon is by itself. We're not going to make it monocarbon. It will just be carbon. Oxygen is by itself, so it will be monoxide. And we have a problem here because we have two O's next to each other. So we are going to drop one of those O's, and it will be monoxide. Okay, now we're going the other way. Now we're giving the name, and it's asking us to write the formula. So chlorine, it's not di, tri, so it's just going to be chlorine with 1. Penta is the prefix for 5, and fluoride is fluorine. So I will give it that 5 prefix because it is penta. Dinitrogen is 2 nitrogens, and monoxide is just 1 oxygen. So di becomes 2. And then mono becomes 1. All right, last one. Disulfur decachloride. Di is 2, so we'll have 2 sulfurs. Deca is 10, and chlorine is just Cl. So di becomes 2, deca becomes 10. That's it. I think this is a little bit easier than ionic. You got this.